Welcome back to Press Review In-Depth. Well, there has been criticism levelled at moderate Muslims and Muslim countries capable of launching an attack on the Islamic State. People are saying that they have not spoken up or done enough to counter the Islamic State's legitimacy. Let's take a look at some analyses. An article by Claire M. Lopez in the Washington Times writes about the dilemma faced by Islam from the Islamic State. The author asks, the question is, where are the rest of the region's Muslims, those supposedly so threatened by what the Islamic State represents? The silence from the Organisation of Islamic Cooperation has been positively deafening. Lopez adds, above all, General Soleimani and the Quds Force notwithstanding, what is Iran really doing to take the fight to the Islamic State and roll back its advances? The author also writes, thanks to massive penetration of the top levels of US national security leadership, which collaborated with affiliates of the Muslim Brotherhood to effect a government-wide purge of training materials about such topics, the American ability to name the enemy and take the offensive to confront and defeat his threat doctrine has been neutralized. Lopez quotes a tweet saying, "Whether the Muslim-led coalition to crush the un-Islamic State drawn from vast modern-equipped militaries of Turkey, Egypt, Pakistan et al." The author adds the Islamic State, pan-Islamic or merely Sunni, eventually will pose a direct national threat to the US interests abroad as well as to the homeland. Bing West, writing in the National Review online on August 14th, urges a sober assessment of the jihadist army, now the richest and most capable Islamic force since the high point of the Ottoman Empire. And CNN journalist Fareed Zakaria questions the existence of moderates in the Middle East. He writes, over the past decade, the US helped organise Iraq's moderates, the Shiite-dominated government, giving them tens of billions of dollars in aid and supplying and training their army. But it turned out the moderates weren't that moderate. He adds, as they became authoritarian and sectarian, Sunni opposition movements grew and jihadi opposition groups such as ISIS gained tacit or active support. He adds the Arab world is going through a bitter sectarian struggle that is carrying the Islamic world back to the Dark Ages, according to Turkish President Abdullah Gül. In these circumstances, moderates either become extremists or they lose out in the brutal power struggles of the day. He adds the Middle East has been trapped for decades between repressive dictatorships and illiberal opposition groups, between Hosni Mubarak and Al-Qaeda, leaving little space in between. The dictators try to shut down all opposition movements, and the ones that survive are vengeful, religious and violent. Zakaria concludes, asserting that the moderates in Syria could win is not tough foreign policy talk. It's a naive fantasy with dangerous consequences. Well, now to get the views of a Muslim representative, I'll speak to Raza Nadeem, spokesperson for the Muslim Public Affairs Committee. Thank you for joining me, Raza.
Hi there, thank you for having me.
Firstly, commentators are criticising what they see as a lack of moderate Muslim involvement in countering the Islamic State, whether it be state actors on the ground who have large militaries that could intervene and stop the IS, or individuals, Muslims specifically in the West, not speaking out against the IS. What do you say to this accusation?
I mean, what I would say is that if you speak to most Muslims, being in the United Kingdom, obviously, seeing what Muslims are saying in their sentiments, most Muslims are vehemently against IS and what they stand for and what they're doing. And I think you'd be hard-pressed to find any Muslim who genuinely supports IS and their goals. In terms of being vocal, I think people have been quite vocal. I mean, if people did truly believe in IS and what they were doing, then you would have seen a lot more Muslims going across to pledge their allegiance to the so-called caliph of this caliphate. But you've not seen that, and the reason is because IS does not hold legitimacy in the eyes of the majority of Muslims in the West, and that's why they don't consider them to be representative of their religion. And to be honest, most Muslims consider them to be quite barbaric, especially when you hear some of the stories about what they've been doing to fellow Muslims.
And the Western foreign policy community is now talking about working with what it calls moderate Muslims to counter the threat of the IS. Some Muslims have said that they find the word moderate insulting, as it implies that most Muslims are radical by their nature. Is this the case?
Yeah, the thing is, if I said I'm someone who drinks alcohol says I'm a moderate drinker, that means that I'm actively choosing to moderate my drinking. And if someone says I'm a moderate Muslim, or says that we want to talk to moderate Muslims, what that really is saying is that we are looking for those Muslims that actively moderate their own religion. And that means the undertone is that if a Muslim gets too involved in their religion, they will become extreme. They will no longer be moderate. And I don't buy into that label and being identified in such a way, and most Muslims don't. And so I refuse to call myself a moderate Muslim. I'm a Muslim, as all other Muslims will tell you too that they are Muslims. They're not moderate Muslims or extreme Muslims or liberal Muslims. They are Muslims. And so really that language, it really irks a lot of Muslims, because the people who you see talking about moderate Muslims the most are normally those that attack Muslims and Islam. So, for example, you have commentators from the right and neoconservatives, for example, like Douglas Murray and others, who constantly use this term about moderate Islam, etc. And really, for them, it's their version of Islam that they think is adequate for Muslims to follow in Western countries. And to be honest, I don't buy his definition or what he considers to be a good Muslim.
I heard that there was recently a vigil in London. Muslims were out on the streets protesting against the Islamic State. What more could be done by Muslims to counter the threat of this very damaging organisation?
To be honest, I think most Muslims have made their views clear. They don't consider them to be legitimate, and I think it's worrying. I've seen this, for example, when Israel has been bombing Gaza. You've seen mainly a lot of pro-Israeli commentators saying that, you don't see Muslims condemning what ISIS are doing. Well, actually they are, and secondly, it's a diversionary tactic to take away things from Israel. And the thing is, Muslims are, if you look at social media streams, etc., you can see that most Muslims do not consider ISIS to be representative at all, and I think they can't do much else apart from say, I don't support them, and I don't think the onus is on the Muslim community to distance themselves from ISIS. The onus is really on Western governments to actually put their hands up and say that the situation we created in Iraq over a decade ago has come back to bite us, because that's the reality. It's nothing to do with Muslims or people interpreting the religion in the wrong way. What's happened is that the hell that was created in Iraq by Western intervention has caused these devils to arise.
Yeah, as you say, they are not viewed as Muslims by the majority. Most, in fact, some have referred to them as a cult. How damaging are they going to be to the wider Muslim community?
Thing is, they are an odd bunch. I'll give you an example. There was an image doing the rounds on Twitter and Facebook a couple of weeks ago where you had someone from ISIS, apparently. You had these beheaded heads of people on the ground, and they were doing the one God symbol, kind of testifying their faith in one God. And it's so odd, because there is no Muslim that follows a God like that who would justify or condone the killing of innocent people just because they don't follow your version of faith. But ISIS it's quite worrying, seeing that they do have power, that they do sometimes, that they do have a stronghold in a part of the Muslim world. But really, the onus is on Western countries to admit where they went wrong with their foreign policy, and also that actually they have a major part to play in this. The Muslim community, the pressure should not be on us. We've not done anything to exacerbate this problem or create this problem. We've been the victims of this problem, and you can ask most of the Muslims living in Iraq who suffered at the hands of ISIS. They'll tell you so as well.
Do you think British Muslims, though, can play a central role in persuading Western governments to now take action in events that they themselves maybe created in the Middle East?
They can do to some extent. I think it's, however, what we have seen is that it's when we have seen Western governments talk about acting in the name of humanity to help the Yazidis and others who are suffering at the hands of ISIS. To be honest, most Muslims don't take that seriously, because there was a humanitarian crisis in Palestine as well when Israel was bombing Gaza, and our government, all it could say is that Israel's acting a bit disproportionately. So really, it's Muslims don't take the government's response very seriously, and I think most Muslims that you speak to will tell you that when the government says that they're going to step in and try to stop ISIS, it probably isn't in the best interest of everyone in that region. It's normally in their own interests.
And thank you very much for talking to me, Raza.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
That was Raza Nadeem, spokesperson for the Muslim Public Affairs Committee in the UK. And for more updates, please visit levant.tv. And subscribe to MidEast In-Depth on iTunes. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.